Welcome to Stoic Philosophy for Life. This is not just a place to listen to books, it's a space to feel them with your soul. Here, we illuminate your mind with timeless lessons. Awaken your inner strength, cultivate self-minded discipline, and guide your journey of personal growth. Every word is carefully chosen to reach what you're truly seeking: peace, clarity, and lasting transformation. If this feels like the place for you, hit subscribe and walk this path with us every single day. Now, put on your headphones, take a deep breath, and begin the journey of renewing your mind and your life. Have you ever caught yourself thinking about the same thing over and over again? You replay the conversation. You second-guess the decision. You imagine every possible outcome, trying to protect yourself from the pain of uncertainty. And somehow, the more you think, the worse you feel. It is like being stuck in a maze your own mind built and the walls just keep getting higher. This is overthinking. And it is not helping you. The Stoics knew this struggle well. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world at the time, often wrote to himself not about ruling empires but about ruling his mind. You have power over your mind, he reminded himself, not outside events, but what do most of us do? We give all our power to the events, to the possibilities, to the imagined failures. We think our way into fear and to doubt, into paralysis. Overthinking is not a sign that you are thoughtful. It is a sign that you have forgotten how to trust yourself. Because at the root of overthinking is fear of regret, fear of being wrong, fear of being judged. And instead of moving forward, we try to solve that fear by thinking more. But the truth is, thinking more rarely brings peace. It brings clutter. It brings confusion. What brings peace is action. And even more than that, what brings peace is clarity. Not clarity from the world. Clarity from within. The Stoics taught us that you cannot always trust your feelings, but you can trust your principles. That when your emotions are loud, you must return to your values. So when your mind is spinning, ask what is the right thing to do, not the perfect thing, not the safest thing, the right thing. Then do it. Let that be enough. If this message moved you, share it with someone who needs it. Overthinking makes you believe you need more time. But what you really need is more courage. To act. To decide. To move. There is no thought that will ever protect you from the discomfort of living. But you were not made to stay in your head. You were made to live in alignment with something deeper. Something steady. Tonight, ask yourself, what decision am I avoiding? What truth am I spinning away from? What emotion am I disguising with analysis? And then be still. Let the noise settle. Trust that the answer will not come from thinking harder but from listening deeper. That is the Stoic way. There is a strange comfort in overthinking, like picking at a scab, knowing it will not heal, but still unable to stop. You tell yourself that if you just think about it a little longer, you will find the perfect answer. That clarity will appear. That certainty will finally come. But it never does. All that comes is more confusion, more mental fog, more distance between you and the moment you are actually living. This is the trap. Overthinking is a loop that disguises itself as logic. It feels productive because your mind is busy. It feels responsible because you are not rushing. But deep down, you know the truth: you are not thinking clearly, you are avoiding something. A feeling. A risk. A decision that would force you to face discomfort. And the longer you avoid, the louder your mind becomes. Until the noise is so constant, you forget what silence even feels like. The Stoics saw this pattern for what it was: a failure to act. Epictetus wrote, "Do not explain your philosophy. Embody it." That one line destroys the myth of overthinking. Because no amount of mental analysis can replace action. And no amount of internal debate will ever teach you what experience will. You think you are being cautious, but really you are hesitating. You think you are being smart, but really you are afraid. And that fear? It only grows the more you entertain it. Because the mind, when left to run wild, does not bring peace. It brings panic, anxiety, paralysis. The solution is not to silence your thoughts. The solution is to lead them. That starts with a simple realization: not every thought is true. Not every idea in your head deserves a seat at the table. The Stoics trained their minds like soldiers. They evaluated each thought not based on how it felt, but on whether it was useful, whether it aligned with reason, whether it served a purpose beyond anxiety. So when you find yourself spiraling, ask, is this thought helping me act with virtue? If not, it is a distraction. And if it is a distraction, it is optional. That is the power you forget. You have the power to dismiss thoughts. To say, not now. That is not my concern. Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. But let us be honest, letting go of thoughts is not always easy. Especially if you have trained your brain to live in loops. That is why you must retrain it. Not once, but daily. And not just with affirmations, but with action. Try this tonight. Instead of laying in bed analyzing every choice you made, ask one clear question: what is the next right thing I can do tomorrow? Not everything. One. Write it down. Then release the rest. You are not required to solve your whole life before you sleep. You are only required to rest. That one act of choosing clarity over chaos becomes your training. It builds your discipline. It tells your nervous system we are not living in panic anymore. We are choosing peace. And if you are still restless, go deeper. Ask, what am I really afraid of? Most overthinking is not about logic, it is about fear. Fear of failure. Fear of regret. Fear of being judged. But here is the Stoic truth: you cannot escape those things by thinking. You can only grow through them by acting. Seneca said, we are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more from imagination than from reality. Your mind, left unchecked, will always imagine the worst. Not because it hates you, but because it wants to protect you. But your job is not to believe every fear. Your job is to lead with clarity. To say, yes, that might happen. But if it does, I will face it. I will not run from it in my head every day until I am too tired to live. The Stoics had a name for this mental training: prohairesis. It is your ability to choose your attitude and your actions, no matter the external circumstances. And this is your tool against overthinking. Every time you feel trapped in your mind, bring your focus back to what you control. Not the outcome. Not what people think. But your next step. Your next breath. Your next response. So tonight, make a choice. Not a perfect one. A present one. Choose to return your attention to now. To your body. To your breath. Let the noise pass like weather. Let your inner anchor remind you, you are not your thoughts. You are the one who notices them, and the one who can let them go. You will be tempted to chase every what if, but remember most of them never happen. And the few that do you will handle. You always have. You do not need more time to think. You need more courage to move. And that courage? It begins with a small, quiet whisper that says enough. Enough spinning. Enough doubting. Enough trying to control the uncontrollable. Tonight, I choose to rest my mind. The mind, when left entrained, is like a room with no doors. You enter one thought, one concern, one small worry, and suddenly you are trapped in it. The more you look for a way out, the deeper you sink. You replay conversations, analyze gestures, wonder what you should have said, what you should have done. And somehow, none of it brings you peace. It only adds weight. Until eventually you are carrying more in your head than in your actual life. Overthinking is not intelligence. It is indecision dressed in rational clothing. It convinces you that one more round of thinking will solve everything. That if you just stay a little longer in your thoughts, clarity will arrive. But the Stoics saw this for what it is: a failure of courage. The unwillingness to act. The fear of discomfort disguised as prudence. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. This is the clarity you are looking for, not the perfect solution, but the simple truth. Overthinking thrives in complexity. It dies in simplicity. And most of what torments you in your head is simply this: a refusal to accept what is. Or a refusal to commit to what must be done. Let us break it down. Why do we overthink? Because we want to be safe. We want to protect ourselves from embarrassment, from failure, from rejection. But thinking is not safety. It is a stall. I pause button. I mental treadmill where you run endlessly and get nowhere. The Stoics would ask, is this thought within your control? And if the answer is no, then it does not deserve your time. Not now. Not ever. Try this practice tonight. When you notice yourself ruminating on the past, on something someone said, on something you fear might happen, pause. Place your hand over your heart. Breathe. Then say, is this useful? Not is this true? Not is this dramatic? Just is this useful? And if the answer is no, release it. Let your nervous system feel what that release feels like. Like setting down a heavy bag you did not know you were carrying. If you're here right now, it means you're not waiting for life to happen. You're preparing for it. 2025 won't just be another year. It could be your breakthrough year, if you stay open to growth and committed to the work. Let this be your reminder you're not behind. You're just getting ready. Because here is the truth: most overthinking is just your nervous system trying to process what your body never got a chance to feel. That is why it spins. That is why it loops. Because the emotion underneath fear, sadness, guilt was never acknowledged. It was buried under logic. And emotion that is buried does not disappear. It emerges as mental noise. So take a step back. Ask yourself, what emotion am I avoiding by staying in this loop? Maybe it is fear. Maybe it is grief. Maybe it is shame. Whatever it is, feel it. Sit with it. Let it pass through you. Not to be dramatic, but to be real. The Stoics did not teach denial. They taught resilience. And resilience comes from presence, not from spinning in circles. You might say, But I cannot stop thinking, and that is okay. You do not need to stop thinking. You only need to direct it, to guide it, to interrupt it with clarity. When you find yourself spiraling, bring yourself back to the moment. What do you see right now? What do you hear? What is your body telling you? This is grounding. This is what breaks the loop, not more thought, but more awareness. The Stoics believed in purposeful reflection, not endless analysis. There is a difference. Purposeful reflection leads to insight. Overthinking leads to exhaustion. So, how do you know which one you are doing? Ask yourself, am I getting closer to a decision? Or am I just feeding the doubt? If it is the second, step away. Go for a walk. Touch something physical. Return to the body. Because the mind cannot be healed by the mind alone. Tonight, remind yourself clarity is a consequence of action, not the other way around. You do not need to understand everything before you move. Sometimes you move and then understanding arrives. That is the Stoic way. You live by virtue, not by prediction. You act with integrity, not with perfect foresight. So if your thoughts are heavy, if your head is loud, return to what you control. What can you do with your hands? What can you choose in this moment? What truth can you hold without spinning? You cannot outthink life, but you can outlive your fear. Not by knowing more, but by carrying less. There is a strange moment in overthinking that most people do not talk about. It is the moment when you know you have thought too much and yet you keep going. You are fully aware that nothing new will come of it, that no peace will rise from this mental spiral. But part of you cannot stop, because the thinking has become familiar. And the familiar, even when painful, can feel safer than the unknown. That is the real danger of overthinking. Not just that it exhausts you, but that it becomes your comfort zone. It feels like effort. It feels like you are doing something. But you are not. You are circling the drain, going nowhere. And the more you spin, the more disconnected you feel from your own life. Your body is in one place, but your mind is somewhere else, yesterday, tomorrow, 5 years from now. Anywhere but now. The Stoics would call this a form of mental exile. You are not present. You are not grounded. You are not living. You are rehearsing life, not participating in it. And what a tragedy that is to be alive, but not truly awake. To be thinking constantly, but never clearly. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not waste what remains of your life in speculating about your neighbors, unless with a view to some mutual benefit." Every time you are tempted to lose your temper, ask yourself, would this help me act more justly? That kind of mental filtering is what you need, not more thoughts, but better thoughts. Fewer questions, stronger answers. Let us go deeper. What happens in your body when you overthink? Your jaw tightens. Your breath becomes shallow. Your heart beats faster. And yet, you do not move. Use it. You stare. You scroll. It is the illusion of motion with none of the release. Your nervous system is activated, but has nowhere to go. That is why overthinking is exhausting. It simulates stress without any physical resolution. So what is the Stoic remedy? You act. Even if it is a small act. Even if it is imperfect. Because action interrupts anxiety. Movement recalibrates the mind. It reminds your body that you are not trapped, that you are not helpless, that you do not have to figure out the entire maze. You only need to take the next step. This is the practice. Not to overthink less, but to trust more. Not to calculate every risk, but to accept that some uncertainty is the cost of freedom. The Stoics taught that fear is not something to be removed, it is something to be reinterpreted. Epictetus said, "It is not death or pain that is to be feared, but the fear of pain or death," meaning the story we tell about what could happen is often worse than what actually happens. Ask yourself, what if I trusted that I could handle whatever comes next? Not because it will be easy, not because it will go exactly as planned, but because you will remain steady. Not because you are fearless, but because you are prepared to respond. And this is where overthinking begins to lose its grip. When you stop trying to control outcomes and start preparing your character. When you stop trying to predict the future and start building the kind of person who can meet it. So here is your nightly practice. Sit with one situation you are overthinking. Name it. Be specific. Then ask, what is the worst minus case scenario? Say it out loud. Then ask, what would I do if that happened? Say that too. And then finally ask, what is one thing I can do right now, with what I know, to move forward? Making a decision. Or simply choosing to let it go. But whatever it is, do it. Because clarity does not come from the mind alone. It comes from alignment. When your thoughts, your actions, and your values move in the same direction, overthinking fades. It no longer has a job. Because now you are living. Not guessing. Not spinning. Living. And if your thoughts return, that is okay. You simply return to the breath, to the present, to the truth that you do not need to know everything, you only need to take the next clear step. There is a moment when overthinking stops being a habit and starts becoming an identity. You do not just say, "I am thinking too much." You start saying, "This is just who I am." And once you begin to believe that, everything changes. You stop looking for clarity, because you assume it will never come. You stop trusting your instincts, because you assume your doubts are always more accurate. And you begin to confuse thought with safety, analysis with wisdom, hesitation with intelligence. But that belief is a lie. A quiet, convincing lie that has kept you stuck far too long. The truth is, you were not born to overthink. You were born to observe, to choose, to act, to reflect. Overthinking is not who you are, it is a pattern you have practiced. And anything practiced can be unlearned. Rewritten. Redirected. This is what the Stoics understood better than anyone. They knew that your thoughts are not your fate. They are your responsibility. That your emotions are not obstacles, they are signals. And that suffering begins when you start reacting to your own mind as if every thought it gives you is urgent, meaningful, or true. Most people never stop to ask, is what I am thinking actually helping me? But the Stoics would say loud is not the same as true. A panic thought is not a prophetic one. A fearful thought is not a wise one. Just because your mind is active does not mean it is accurate. So what do you do when you feel the spiral coming? You step back. You detach. You say that is a thought, not a fact. You observe it like you would a cloud passing through the sky. You do not chase it. You do not fight it. You let it drift. You let it go. And if it comes back, you do it again. Because overthinking is not an enemy to be defeated. It is a wave to be ridden. The more you resist, the more it crashes. The more you ride, the more it softens. Epictetus said, when you are offended at any man's fault, turn to yourself and study your own failings. Then you will forget your anger. In the same way, when you are overwhelmed by thought, turn inward and ask, what in me is craving control right now? Because overthinking always comes from a fear of losing control. But control is not found in more thought. It is found in more presence, in more acceptance, in more trust. Tonight, do this. Take 10 slow breaths. Inhale through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. On each exhale, whisper to yourself, release. Release what? Control. Certainty. The illusion that one more thought will make the future safer. Then ask yourself, what do I know for sure right now? That you are breathing. That you are safe. That you are doing your best. Let that be enough. Let it be your anchor. Next, bring to mind a recent moment of overthinking. Replay it, but this time, remove the judgment. Instead of asking, why did I think that? Ask, what was I trying to protect? The answer might surprise you. You will find that beneath every spiral is a need for safety, for approval, for clarity, for peace. And when you see the need, you can meet it with action instead of more thought. That is the shift. That is the rewiring. The Stoics taught that we cannot avoid uncertainty, but we can prepare for it. We can train our minds to meet it with equanimity, with strength, with poise. But that training does not happen by accident. It happens every night when you choose to stop rehearsing your fears and start rehearsing your response. So practice this every time your mind spins. Return to your values. Ask, what would courage do? What would wisdom do? What would humility do? Then do that. Not because it is easy, but because it is the only way forward. Overthinking will tell you to wait until you feel ready. Your values will tell you to act even when you do not. One leads to a deeper trap. The other leads to freedom. Tonight, choose freedom. There is a quiet tragedy in waiting for the perfect moment to begin. We delay. We overthink. We tell ourselves we just need one more reason, one more signal, one more alignment. But the Stoics taught that life is lived in the imperfect present, never in the waiting room of infinite possibilities. Every moment you wait, the present slips away. The only certainty you have is this breath, this second, this choice. Overthinking thrives in the gap between wanting and doing. That gap is fertile ground for doubt. It whispers, maybe you are not ready. Maybe it is not the right time. Maybe you should wait. And before you know it, a lifetime has passed in preparation. But preparation without action is surrender. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. This is not just philosophy. It is a directive to the overthinker. Stop debating. Start being. So tonight, do not wait for clarity. Create it through action. It does not have to be grand. It only needs to be real. A message sent. A page written. A step towards something meaningful. Let that small act teach your mind you lead. How many years have passed where you promised yourself change, but drifted back into comfort? This time, it's different because you're still here. You're listening, you're learning, and most importantly, you're not quitting. And that's what separates wishful thinking from real transformation. Not the thinking. Not the doubt. You. When we overthink, we believe we are protecting ourselves from chaos. But in reality, we are postponing life. The Stoics believed in embracing chaos as the catalyst for growth, not fearing it as the destroyer of peace. Epictetus said, "No great thing is created suddenly, but also great things do not grow when the sun sleeps. If you wait for everything to be perfect, nothing will ever begin." What begins tonight? Choose one small, courageous action before you sleep. Something your overthinking mind says, "Wait until tomorrow," then do it now. Send the message you have been contemplating. Say the thing you have been postponing. Commit to the seed of clarity you would otherwise fan into doubt. And when you do, notice what happens in your body. Does the tension ease? Does the mind pause? Does the future feel less overwhelming? That is not coincidence. It is physiology. When you act, your nervous system recalibrates. It aligns with purpose. It chooses momentum. The Stoics practice small acts of courage every day. They chose virtue over comfort, clarity over confusion, action over hesitation. They did not wait for storms to pass because they knew storms pass. And calm always returns. But the question is, who did you become in the meantime? Tonight, remember, clarity begins with you. With your next step. With your willingness to begin again, not perfectly, but fully. Overthinking is not a mindset. It is a habit. And habits change one decision at a time. So make this one count. The moment you say enough, and you lead. And we all know one breath of courage, one act of clarity can shift everything. There is a peculiar heaviness that comes not from the decisions you make but from the ones you avoid. It settles in your chest like a quiet shadow, invisible to others, yet unshakably present within you. And the things you leave undone are often far heavier than the things you do, because in them lies opportunity, growth, change. Overthinking teaches you to ignore that weight until it becomes unbearable. Until it becomes the story you tell yourself about while life is stalled. The Stoics recognized this shadow. They spoke of action not as lack of willpower, but as weakness of purpose, the inability to choose what aligns with your higher self, even when you know what it is. It is the gap between knowledge and action. It is sorrow disguised as sleep. It is life postponed indefinitely. Marcus Aurelius, who could have spent his days basking in comfort and power, instead spent them shaping his inner strength through journaling, meditation, action. He chose purpose over paralysis. He refused to let his mind become a prison. He taught his soul how to act decisively, even when the world was imperfect. He knew that clarity is forged through courage, and courage is the antidote to overthinking. Let us trace the pattern carefully. Overthinking often begins with comparison. You see someone else living an answer you have only experiments toward. You scroll through images, captions, stories of success, happiness, ease. And you tell yourself, fix me until I look like that. But those stories are curated. They are snapshots. They are not the depth of human existence. And the greatest Stoics never compared, they reflected. They asked, what shall I do? What kind of person do I choose to be? Tonight, do not compare your behind the scenes with someone else's highlight reel. Instead, compare your today to your yesterday. Are you more grounded? More aligned? More present? Action builds momentum. Momentum builds clarity. Clarity builds peace. Here is your next practice. Imagine you are the editor of your own story. You hold the pen at every moment. You decide what to keep in, and what to leave on the cutting room floor. Overthinking is a draft full of revisions you never publish. It never gets shared. It never grows. So tonight, write one line, not a chapter, describing your next step forward. Keep it raw. Keep it real. Then close the notebook. Walk away. Let the act exist in the world, small, honest, liberating. You will feel the relief, the shift, not because something externally changed, but because the voice in your head heard itself obeyed. And that obedience, however small, becomes a chant of trust. I whisper that says, I can do this. The Stoics also practiced voluntary discomfort, not to punish, but to prepare. They knew that when your mind expects ease, it will sabotage you with doubt at the first sign of friction. So they chose moments of hardship, cold exposure, solitary walks, fasting. They taught themselves that discomfort does not equal disaster. That the real danger is your reactivity. That any path worth walking will test you. And overcoming those tests builds a mind that does not tremble at uncertainty. You can do the same right now. Choose discomfort not because anyone is watching, but because you are. Prefer clarity over ease. Choose courage over comfort, because the brave version of you is waiting, asking permission from within to show up, to act, to thrive. Overthinking tells you it is not safe yet, that you need more data, more certainty, more reassurance. But those are traps. Life cannot be predicted, and no amount of prediction ensures success. So the Stoic asks a different question: what is within my power? And they act. Even imperfectly. Even hesitantly. But still. Tonight, take your original small step, a reminder that courage is not absent of fear, it is the willingness to act despite it. Let your mind feel the weight of obedience. Let it sense that thought can command action, and that action can dissolve thought loops. Let your heart learn that it is not abandoned by the world. It is strengthened by challenge. Now place one hand over your heart. Feel its steady beat. Each pulse is a declaration: I am alive. I am here. And I will move. And this is enough. More than enough. It is essential. As you prepare for sleep, repeat this truth: I trust myself to begin. Let the words sink not as an aspiration, but as a practice. Let them echo within the chambers of your mind that once repeated doubt. Let them root themselves in the crevices of your chest that once cleaved to hesitation. Overthinking is broken when courage is practiced. It is broken not through analysis, but through doing. And tonight, you have done. You have shifted. You have returned. Sleep now, not to escape your mind, but to recharge it. Not to hide from the chaos, but to prepare for tomorrow's clarity. And tomorrow the world will still be imperfect. But you will have in you a foundation of purpose. A step taken. A choice made. And in that lies your freedom. The rest you earn tonight is not just rest. It is a confirmation you can start. Whenever. Wherever. Because your mind serves you, not drives you. There is a kind of silence that arrives after a long day of noise. A silence that is not empty, but full with all the unresolved questions, all the hopes deferred or voiced in the quiet of your mind. It is here that overthinking gathers its power. In the absence of distraction, the doubts return and wrap themselves around every breath. The silence becomes a battleground. This night, let's sit with that battleground differently. You've already taken steps toward clarity. You've acted in defiance of fear. But there's a deeper work waiting now, the work of self minus trust. Because overthinking often begins at this place, at the threshold where your mind whispers, what if you are wrong? What if you fail? And so you stay. You stay in thought. You stay separate from life. You stay safe. But safety at that cost is not living, it is hiding. The Stoics understood the courage required not just to act, but to trust the act. To trust that once you've made a decision, imperfect though it may be, you can look it in the eye. You can live it. You can allow your value to be proven in the doing, not in the perfect preparation. Seneca wrote that courage is the refuge of reason. And that is your refuge tonight. Return to reason. Return to the truth that you are capable. That your mistakes will only make you wiser. That imperfection is not disqualification, it is the material from which mastery is carved. So begin. Feel your feet on the ground. Feel the support of the floor beneath you. Feel your breath filling your lungs. Acknowledge it all. Because you are here. And here is what matters. Now bring your mind to a single conviction, a truth worth embodying. Something like, I will begin, even if I don't feel fully ready. Or my worth is not in certainty, but in presence. Repeat it silently. Let it anchor your body. Let it steady your mind. When your thoughts return, as they will, greet them with kindness. Not because they are wrong, but because they are stories you no longer choose to live by. Say, yes, I hear you. But not now. Then return to your anchor. Your conviction. Your breath. Each time you do this, you strengthen the practice. You teach your mind that it is not the boss. You show it that life is lived in motion, not in hesitation. You remind yourself that courage is not absence of doubt. It is the willingness to act in spite of it. Tonight, your courage takes form not in grand gestures, but in this simple act, choosing belief over doubt. Choosing motion over stillness. Choosing presence over paralysis. Before sleep, repeat, I trust my steps. I mean it. Let it settle into your bones. Let it echo in your chest. Let it carry you into rest with clarity, not chaos. Because tomorrow the world will still hold its unknowns. But you will have remembered who you are, someone who decides. Someone who acts. Someone who lives. That is enough. There is a rhythm to life that often goes unheard beneath the march of our thoughts. A rhythm that pulses beneath our doubt, hope, fear, and ambition, the rhythm of the heart beating, the lungs rising and falling, the very essence of elevance. And when we overthink, we suspend ourselves above this rhythm, disconnected, suspended, as if the weight of our worries could make us float. But floating is not living. And it is in living deeply, with presence, that we reconnect with our root. Tonight, bring your awareness back to rhythm. Feel the beat of your heart under your hand, steady and unpretentious. Listen to the quiet rise of each breath, steady as a tide. Life is breathing, you no need to overthink it. The Stoics called this kind of awareness prosach attention. Not attention to thought, but attention to life. Epictetus taught, remember that you are an actor in a play of such a kind as the author chooses. If short, of a short one, if long, of the long one. This means being present in the act, not worrying about the next scene or the applause. So tonight, become the actor of your own inner play. Let every breath, every heartbeat, every sense tell you you are here, alive and awake, without having to prove anything. Now consider the stories you tell yourself at night. Not the big ones, but the little ones, the whisper of I am not enough, I failed, I must do more. These stories are tiny curses repeated until they shape the day. They are fables given truth until your mind believes them. But you are not your thoughts. You are not the critic inside your head. You are the one watching, breathing, choosing. You are the light dancer weaving between the thoughts, not the marionette bound by them. Tonight as you lie down, let each negative story pass like a shadow in the dusk. Acknowledge it, don't deny it. Then say not now. Let your recurrence ritual be brief and firm as if closing a door. Then return to rhythm. To presence. To life's quiet pulse. Each repetition strengthens a neural groove in your mind's architecture. It rewires the pattern from I am that thought to I choose peace. That shift is revolutionary and silent. There is a version of you in 2025 that looks back at this moment and smiles. Because this is when it started, when you chose discipline over distraction, purpose over pressure. Keep listening. You are not just passing time, you are reshaping your future with every word. It happens in the small, unnoticed choices, like choosing to return to breath rather than chase a worry. The Stoics understood that the foundation of resilience is repetition. Not dramatic progress, but steady refinement. Once, in Meditations, Marcus Aurelius compared the mind to glass. It is fragile. It cracks under pressure. And we must repair it daily, nearly invisibly, with simple practice, returning to center, noticing judgment, letting it go. So tonight, build more resilience by cultivating small acts of presence. Begin with the breath. Then your heartbeat. Then your senses. Let your eyes soften in the darkness. Let your muscles relax. Let your mind release old stories that no longer serve. And let an inner phrase rise, something true, not fanciful. I am enough. I am learning. I will begin again tomorrow. Whatever fits your truth. Say it softly. Let it sink. Let it become the echo that slides you into rest, not in suppression, but in acceptance. The kind that precedes true renewal. Because when you stop overthinking, you do more than calm your mind, you reclaim your life. You reconnect with your root rhythm. Now carry that rhythm into sleep. Let it guide you home. There is a quiet unfolding within every moment, an inner tide that moves in silence, beneath the roar of thought and under the events of the day. It is the subtle rhythm of becoming, of growing, of finding one's center. But overthinking buries that rhythm. It pulls you under into a sea of reasons, what minus ifs, and could minus have minus been, as far from the gentle rise and fall of your true self. This night, return to that inner tide. Begin by noticing your breathing. Not the noisy, thought-filled breath, but the lifeline that connects you to the present. Follow it. Let it speak for you when your mind tries to argue. In this moment, the breath does not need to justify itself. It simply is. And so can you. The Stoics believe that attention must be trained, like a muscle. They practiced presence. They practiced focus. But above all, they practiced stillness in the midst of motion. Marcus Aurelius, in the midst of empire and battle, wrote not to escape but to return to his center. Let your writing tonight be the echo of his return to yourself. Now address the overthinking mind with compassion. Imagine it as a child scared of the dark, feeling around for safety. It wants reassurance. It wants certainty. It wants to know what will happen tomorrow. Offer it something better: permission not to know. Permission not to have the answer right now. Permission to rest. Say softly, it is okay not to know. I am here. I will meet this tomorrow. Let this be a gift you give yourself tonight, the permission to feel, to breathe, to cease the struggle. Overthinking drills a hole in your trust in yourself and life in the flow of becoming. It whispers, I cannot be who I need to be yet. I must gather more. But the Stoics remind us character is built in action. Wisdom lives in small, consistent choices. Presence happens moment by moment, breath by breath. So tonight's practice is simple. Name the noise. Speak the thought that loops in your head. See it in the light. Let it lose its power. Feel the breath. Let it settle the body, the mind, the spirit. Do not chase clarity. Simply return to presence. Affirm your worth. Say a phrase that roots you deeper than the noise. I am more than this thought. I will begin again. My life is lived in action, not anxiety. Move once. It could be standing up, stretching, writing a word, speaking a line. That small act tells your brain we move. We begin. Repeat this pattern as long as you need. Each cycle breaks the hold of overthinking and rebuilds the bridge to your center. Each breath calms, each action reorients, each affirmation nourishes. In adversity, and you may not feel an adversity tonight, you still have power over your own presence. The Stoics did not wait for storms to pass. They learned to anchor themselves within the storm. They chose their inner posture. And you tonight can choose yours. It is not perfection you pursue. It is fidelity. Fidelity to your intentions, to your breath, to your life. Fidelity to the simple rhythm that carries you through uncertainty with grace. Let your final words tonight be a vow to yourself. I returned. Again. Always. Rest now, not because the world demands it, but because your soul deserves it. There is a hidden power in returning to the moment again and again. Not as a heroic act, but as a quiet habit of presence. Overthinking steals this power. It convinces you that life happens in the future after clarity comes, after perfection arrives, after you figure it all out. But the Stoics knew better. They believed life happens right here, right now. Even through hesitations. Even through uncertainty. Tonight, remember that. Feel it as you breathe. Inhale presence. Exhale out. There is no finish line to mental peace, only fidelity to the process. You will return. You will pause. You will breathe. You will choose action. And then the loop begins again tomorrow, in 1,000 small choices. Each one simpler than the swirl you escaped. So tonight, lean into gratitude, not as sentiment, but as perspective. Gratitude for breath. Gratitude for brothers like this. Gratitude for the chance to choose again. Gratitude that you are alive. That alone is the foundation for peace. Say softly to yourself, I am here. I chose again. It may feel small. It may feel inadequate. But it is enough. Moment by moment, breath by breath, choice by choice, it becomes something grand, your life. This is not about perfection. It is about presence. Not consistency in result, but consistency in return. You will overthink again. You will reset again. That is not failure. It is proof that you are human. And that is enough. Let your final question tonight be, did I return? If yes, rest. If no, rest anyway and try again tomorrow. That is the path of courage. That is the path of living. There is a moment when the mind finally quiets, not because it has found all the answers, but because it has finally surrendered the need to have them. That moment, soft and often unannounced, is where overthinking dissolves. If you found this video valuable and meaningful, please consider sharing it. You never know, it might help someone who truly needs it. Not by force, not by resistance, but by release. That is where we begin this final chapter, not in striving, but in stillness. Overthinking, at its root, is not a problem of logic. It is a problem of control. It is the desperate attempt to secure an outcome, to predict every turn, to minimize pain by maximizing preparation. But life does not reward control. It rewards participation. And every thought that keeps you locked inside your head is a moment lost from the world that longs to feel you fully alive. The Stoics knew this well. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think, not to provoke anxiety, but to sharpen presence, to cut through the noise, to ask, if this were my last night on earth, would I want to spend it running simulations of conversations I never had? Would I want to spend it editing versions of myself that weren't ever even spoken aloud? Would I want to stay stuck in thought or move, however imperfectly, into the moment? That is your power. Always. To return. To step out of the fog and into clarity. Not when life gets easier. Not when fear disappears. But now. Let us go deeper. Overthinking feeds on unfinished loops, questions without closure, actions without follow-through, emotions on a canoed lead. It tells you that everything must be resolved before you rest. But the Stoics taught the opposite. Not everything must be finished, but everything can be faced. So face yourself. Ask, what have I been running from in thought? Maybe it is a conversation you need to have. A boundary you need to set. A dream you need to stop postponing. Whatever it is, name it. Do not solve it tonight. Just face it. Because naming the truth is the beginning of peace. Seneca said, begin at once to live, and count each separate day as a separate life. That is your invitation tonight, to end this day fully. Not dragging yesterday. Not borrowing from tomorrow. But closing this page with a kind of presence that says, I showed up for my mind. I showed up for my values. I did not allow my thoughts to run the show. I returned. Again. And again. Here is a practice for this final evening. Find a quiet place. Sit comfortably. Breathe deeply. Then write stream of consciousness for 10 minutes. No editing. No judgment. Just let the thoughts come out. Let the overthinking leave your head and land on paper. You are not writing for a reader. You are writing to liberate your mind. Then when the timer ends, close the notebook. Place your hand on your chest. Say, I do not need to carry this into sleep. I have seen it. I have heard it. I let it go. This act may feel symbolic. It is. But it is also powerful. It tells your brain, the loop has been heard. The loop has been honored. The loop is now closed. And then you rest. Not because everything is fixed, but because you have learned rest is not something you earn by solving all your problems. Rest is something you give yourself because you are human. Because you are enough. And this is the highest form of emotional mastery. Not perfect calm. Not constant clarity. But the ability to meet yourself in the dark with compassion and say, even now I trust myself to breathe. You see, overthinking is not the enemy. It is the signal. It tells you that something within you is asking for attention, for clarity, for closure. But the answer is never more thinking. The answer is turning gently inward, asking, what truth have I ignored? What fear have I avoided? What strength have I forgotten? The Stoics never promised a life without challenge. They promised a way of meeting it. Not through endless planning, not through obsessive analysis, but through presence, through virtue, through simplicity. Epictetus taught that no man is free unless he masters himself. And self minus mastery is not the absence of doubt, it is the skill of responding wisely when doubt arrives. It is the strength to move forward, even when your mind screams for delay. It is the discipline of doing the next right thing, even when the outcome is not guaranteed. And this truly is the freedom you have been seeking all along. Not the absence of fear, but the decision to no longer bow to it. Not the silencing of thought, but the power to choose which ones you follow. Not a life of ease, but a life of alignment. You are never meant to live in your head. You are meant to live in your actions, in your presence, in the gentle rhythm of being fully here. So as you prepare to close your eyes, say this not as a performance, but as a promise. I do not need to think this through one more time. I do not need to calculate my worth through my worries. I do not need to solve what is not mine to solve. I return to now. I return to presence. I return to peace. Then breathe. Let that peace find its way into your muscles. Let your hands loosen. Let your jaw unclench. Let your heart settle into its steady rhythm, the one that has always known the way. The world will continue. The uncertainty will remain. But you, stronger now, will no longer seek to control it all. You will meet it moment by moment with clarity, with courage, with calm. Because overthinking ends where self-minus trust begins. And you, through each practice, each breath, each choice, have begun. Sleep now. Not to escape, but to rise. If this message stirred something in you, don't let it fade. Write one thing down that you'll start doing this week. 2025 doesn't magically change anything you do, and your future begins the moment you decide to move, even just a little.